Hello and welcome to Stretford Paddock. My name is Joe. I'm joined by Phil from Leicester Fan TV, and we are going to be looking at whether Harry Maguire was Manchester United's biggest waste of money. It's a big thing to say that, isn't it? But we'll get into that in just a minute. Before that, make sure you check out BT Sport, as they will be broadcasting all 10 midweek Premier League games exclusively from Tuesday the 30th of August to Thursday the 1st of September, including, quite crucially, Leicester City versus Manchester United. And with the BT Sport monthly pass, you can watch huge amounts of football from the Premier League, Champions League, Europa League Conference, Serie A, Ligue, Vanarama National League, all for the next 30 days for just £25 a month with no contract. To sign up, go to bt.com/monthly pass or click the link in the description. With all that being said, how you doing, Phil? You all right?
Yeah, Joe, pretty good. How are you?
Not too bad. Yeah, things could be worse. I mean, it's not the best start to the season, but things look to be on the up somewhat at the moment. We'll get into a bit of that game later on. It's a slight sort of look forward at that. But I wanted to talk to you about this Maguire situation at Man United. Obviously, him being dropped for the Liverpool game was a massive statement by Ten Hag. I think it's also worth pointing out as well that you're currently in a position where, with the whole sort of Fofana to Chelsea deal, where there's talk of another sort of £80 million centre-back sale going on, this time for someone who's even younger, even less experienced. Firstly, your thoughts on Harry Maguire. Do you think he's been a waste of money for Man United?
It's such a tricky one, Joe. It really is. From a Leicester's point of view, when Man United came in and paid that big amount of money for him, most Leicester fans were very disappointed to see him go. Again, a young talent like Maguire go, and he played really well for Leicester. But when it was that amount of money, most of us were like, well, fair play. It's a world record transfer for a defender. And the honest answer was, I don't think he's that good at that money. So from Leicester's point of view, tremendous business to sell somebody. You've got to think we sold Riyad Mahrez to your rivals Man City back there for 60 million, who really, really is a skill wizard. And yet Maguire is, to be fair, a lot of Leicester fans, we said we sold Man United a fridge for 80 million.
Do you believe that? Or was that a sort of, like, now he's left, we can kind of slag him off a bit because we didn't want him anyway type thing? Or do you genuinely think it was I can't believe they've done this, he's not the player they think they're getting? Because it wasn't just Ole who eventually signed him that wanted him. Jose Mourinho wanted him the previous season, didn't he? It was talked to sort of more 40 to 50 million. Do you think that United basically bought a dud, or do you think it's just not quite worked out, because of maybe that transfer fee?
In all honesty, joking aside, I think you bought a decent player there. I think he's a good centre-back. I think he's potentially, certainly when he was at Leicester and then when he's been at Man United, I've looked at him and thought, this guy's potential future England captain quality may be in there. We all thought he was decent. He was more than solid. He held the line pretty well, quite good in the air. Overall, I think for us at Leicester and then going to Man United, I thought he was going to be part of the new Manchester United era. I really did. I thought he was a sensible buy. You've made some strange buys over the last 5, 6, 7 years, but he was one of those where I thought, solid young English centre-half, that's a building block for Man United.
It's a shame that it has sort of gone the way it has with him, and I don't think it's necessarily his career is over at United, but it's a shame that we've seen a player come in, be given the captain's armband so quickly, and then just slowly sort of being chipped away, and his performances have dropped to the point where he's out of the team. Just to raise a couple of stats, because obviously I want to talk about Fofana as well, who another sort of mega money rumours and transfers and all that sort of stuff going on with him. Just a couple of stats of, you talked about that, how good he was in the air, or how decent in the air. Since Maguire left, Leicester have been a lot less aerially dominant than they were with him there. Headed clearances down from an average of about 490 per season to an average of about 350 per season. And aerial duels, again, both down by sort of 10 to 20% as well. The problem is, he needs to do a lot more than that for United. Do you think that's the thing where maybe we underestimated his ability to play with the ball and his ability to play in a system that United now want, which is a ball-playing centre-back who can bring the ball out from the back. Maybe we sort of overlooked that in favour of what at the time was a more counter-attacking style.
I think possibly you did, because again, while at Leicester, we're not so used to the quality of players as we've probably had over the last 6 or 7 years. So Maguire as a centre-back, who could pull the ball down, lay off a simple pass, lay off a 40, 50-yard pass. But Maguire, when he was at Leicester as well, could take the ball forward, could go through midfield, could take it into attacking plays. And I still feel that I've seen him do that for you guys at Man United. It just appears to me that the pressure being a Manchester United centre-half and captain, compared to being that at Leicester City, I hate to say it because I'm a Leicester fan, but it is chalk and cheese. That he looks like he's had the world of weight on his shoulders, sadly, for him at times. And I do wonder, Joe, I know he was left out for the Liverpool game, but it feels like, I don't want to say he was a scapegoat, because obviously it helped, but it felt a bit maybe harsh that, oh, we've left Maguire out, we've beaten Liverpool, that's it, that's the magic ingredient. I'm not quite sure it is as simple as that, is it?
I'm not sure, because I don't think Maguire playing was the single reason why no one has looked any good for a year. But yeah, it's that correlation and causation argument where, yes, he's out and they're playing better, but also, are they playing better because he's out? Well, we just have to wait and see. Do you think there's still a chance that, do you think he is a sort of Champions League level kind of, maybe not he's going to win the league as your captain type player, but do you think whilst Man United are still improving and trying to get back to those heights, do you think there's still a player in there that could hopefully have a career at Manchester United?
I think so, yes. It may be a bit of a break and he might have to slightly reinvent himself and come back in. He might have to wait for an injury or something like that to get a chance. But I still think Harry Maguire is going to play, I still think, a big part in the England World Cup in Qatar. And I think for Manchester United, he could I wouldn't be surprised if he knuckles down, comes back and actually does become part of a success story for himself and for Man United over the time. Obviously, you've got this new manager. Things are going to change. And I think it was quite right that he shook things up. So I'd like to think, I've got every faith that Maguire is that sort of player who can come back. And I don't think there's some rumours that you might even want to sell in this transfer window. I think he will stick around, and I really think he will turn it around for you boys.
Interesting, yeah. I mean, I've been someone that's been sort of, largely not praising him because he was very poor last season. I think there's no way you could deny that. But someone who's said that some of the stick he's been given has been slightly unfair because of the price tag, which he didn't choose, and the captain's armband, which again he didn't choose to be given that. But yeah, it's interesting that you think that he's still got a chance there. Talking about, like you said, there's a chance he might go. It looked as though he would be the potential sort of backup option for Chelsea if they didn't sign Fofana. Now, here's another player. How old is he? 21, 22 years old? Looking at another 80 million potentially fee for a guy who's been out for most of last season with a broken leg. My first question is, how do you do it? How do Leicester do this? Because I'm not saying he's not a good player, but that is a lot of money for someone who is inexperienced at the best of times and, has just been out with a massive injury. How is that possibly going to happen, that?
I think Leicester is, and we sort of have to accept it, that Leicester is a stepping stone club. And there's a lot of players out there. Fofana was looked at by loads of clubs. I know Liverpool were highly interested in him, and a lot of big clubs were on the verge of Fofana to buy him, but just couldn't quite convince themselves to buy him. And Leicester's one of those clubs where it's quite an easy sell to somebody like him to say, look, we'll gamble the 30 million on you, 40 million. Come to Leicester, you're going to play every week, which is massive. I see a lot of players at the so-called big clubs who just don't get that regular week in, week out game experience. And Fofana gets that. If you come to Leicester, you'll play. With our first 11 is decent, but lower than that, you're going to get into it. So Fofana, he'll come, he'll play, he'll have 2 years. And then I think we're quite open to people and say, if you make a success of it, you're going to be on the world stage playing these teams. They'll spot you. They'll come and buy you. Yeah. And I think it's as simple as that.
It's almost like Leicester are sort of the English equivalent of Borussia Dortmund, isn't it? Where you get players in the sort of the step before the big team. I know obviously they get the Champions League and stuff, but
Yes.
you know, Leicester win trophies and get to finals and, you know, can offer top level football, but also, like you said, if a 60, 70, 80 million pound bid comes in, they'll probably let you go as well. I think it's a good system that you got there. Moving on to sort of current form, obviously looking ahead to the this game on Thursday. Leicester's form this season has, well, I say this season, almost like United's, since sort of the beginning or the mid part of last season, has been particularly poor, hasn't it? When you think, you know, you won the FA Cup the season before last, obviously the whole the league stuff 5 or 6 years ago as well, but this is a team that's pushing for top 4 season in, season out, and now it's almost in free fall at the moment. What is going on with Leicester?
I think we've had a bit of mismanagement, which is unusual for Leicester because generally it's been managed well over the last 10 years. A little bit of mismanagement where we bought in a few players like Yannick Vestergaard, Ryan Bertrand, some of these players right at the death of last summer's transfer window. And we brought them in as backup, but we put them on big wages, too big a wage where we can't shift them on. Teams like Fulham have wanted to buy Vestergaard, but he doesn't want to move because he's going to get a drop in wages. So we've got a 25-man squad where we can't get rid of players. So we've not been able to freshen up this summer. And yet, so we want to get rid of some of the squad fringe players, but really it's the Maddisons, the Tielemans, the Fofanas. It's our first team players that people are actually interested in. And that's causing us disruption in the changing rooms, I think.
That sounds almost exactly like Manchester United, where we've got these squad players who aren't really good enough to be starting every week. We'd like to get them out to bring in either new squad players or someone to even replace the player above them, but they're just on too much money. Like Phil Jones is a great example of that. I think Wan-Bissaka is another example of that, where, you know, we've got these players who we can't really shift them because no one's going to pay the money that they're on because they're not good enough. So you kind of stuck with them. I think we've just, you know, Eric Bailly's just gone out on loan to, I think it's Marseille. So it's like we're sort of struggling to get those players out as well. Do you think, watching Leicester looking from the outside, and obviously, you know, on the whole, Brendan Rodgers has been an excellent manager for Leicester, probably your most consistent manager, and obviously Ranieri had the league title, but you've looked like a consistently top 6 team challenging for top 4. You almost look like you're ready for a shake-up. You look like a bit of a sort of stale team that needs a new manager, and yet you've already got a good manager. How is that? You know, how does that feel like as a Leicester fan? Does it seem as though the manager's almost coming to an end?
It feels like there's something not quite right there. What Rodgers has been coming out, he said the other day in a radio interview that before he went on his summer holiday, he'd persuaded 2 or 3 players to come and sign for Leicester. And then when he came back from his holiday, the club said, we're not buying any players. So he's been quite vocal to say that he feels a little bit let down. I think our biggest problem, I would just about stick with Rodgers partly because other people rumoured that could come in is people like Sean Dyche, and I'd rather have Brendan Rodgers than Sean Dyche. But we need some. I mean, you just mentioned Phil Jones there. You'd like to get rid of him. He's the sort of player I'd really like to see at Leicester. Somebody decent quality, somebody who's been around, seen there and done it. We lack experience and old get your nose to the grindstone type of players. And we've got Johnny Evans, ex-United, but somebody like Phil Jones, I'd be quite happy to have somebody like him at Leicester. And I think that's maybe, we've got a couple of players, you know, been no linking of James Maddison to Man United. He's a Man United fan as far as I know. I think he would slot in very in your team. Not that I'm trying to sell him.
Well, if you're trying to do a swap deal for Phil Jones and James Maddison, I think every Manchester United fan in the world would accept that. So I'm more than happy to take that one. Looking at a sort of a prediction for the game then, how do you think this one's going to go?
I certainly wouldn't want to put much money on it, put it that way, because I watched the Man United against Liverpool game, and it was lovely to see a team not play out from the back and just sort of say, we're gonna press, we're gonna play like our lives depend on it. So if that United team turns up at Leicester, I fear for Leicester, because we've gone into this high possession-based football where it is just pass, left to right. It's dull as ditch water, 85, 90 time. And I think we're not the best at doing it necessarily. We're pretty good. But if the United who beat Liverpool play like that come to Leicester, I'm going to fear for Leicester a little bit.
In terms of a score prediction, what are you going for?
Well, having said all that I fear, I always hope with Leicester, because on a day we could turn you guys over. So I am going to still go for a 2-1 to Leicester. Partly being positive, but partly when Leicester's on their day, which we haven't been this season so far really yet, but when we are, we can compete with the best, and we've shown that over the last 3 or 4 years.
Interesting that, yeah. Obviously, last season, you beat Man United. That was the start of the run that basically ended Solskjaer's reign at United. Was it 4-1 or 4-2 at Leicester, and then we lost to Liverpool, and then it sort of all came tumbling down there. But yeah, I mean, I'm going to go for a 2-0 win to United. I think, obviously, we seem hopefully to be on the up a little bit, and I think that Leicester, they've been poor for quite a while. Not poor, but you're struggling at the moment, and I think that the lack of improvement to that squad means that I think probably people will start getting a bit edgy in that dressing room, and I think it might be a difficult time at the moment. So I'm going to go 2-1. But thank you so much, Phil, for coming on, and thank you for chatting with us today. That was great. I mean, I've learned how Leicester get all their money for their players, why Harry Maguire is still decent, and the fact that Fofana is actually worth 80 million quid, and I never thought I'd say that, so thank you very much.
No worries, Joe. It's been great to chat to you. I'm not quite sure Fofana is worth £80 million. Not at 21 either, but if they want to pay it,
it's nice, isn't it? I mean, I was looking the other day, and Manchester United's 5th highest ever sale is Dan James. And it feels like that wouldn't even get in your top 10, the amount of players that you sell for big money. So, yeah, there you go. Right, thank you very much for joining us. Make sure you check out BT Sport as well. The link is in the description. Go to bt.com/monthly pass, or just click the link in the description. Thanks again, Phil, for coming on. Really insightful look at Leicester City there. Obviously, check out the game on Thursday as well. And we'll see you in a bit.